I think email sucks. Email sucks. There's not a single person I feel like who would say I love email.
In this episode, we sit down with Abe, who's working on Ultra. It's an email client that's been rebuilt from the ground up using AI.
Ultra is your AI executive assistant for your email. So every email that comes into your inbox, we can now sort of extract what's being said and we can get an answer consistently every single time.
We also talk about other ideas, like using AI to reverse engineer crypto transactions.
In real time, you can take a transaction and be able to map it back to other transactions that are very similar to it. Ask the LLM to recreate the contract that would have created these transactions.
And using AI to augment parenting.
So imagine a stuffed animal where you give it to your kid and the stuffed animal's like, hi, it's nice to meet you. And you take it one step further, you give it objectives. I want you to teach my kid to share.
Let's get started.
One of Ultra's core capabilities is that we can take an email, which at its essence is actually HTML, which is like the same language used to write websites. And you know that when you go to like 10 different websites, they can all be saying the same thing. Like if they're all news websites like CNN, Fox, NBC, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all of them are trying to convey a news article, but the format that they provide that information is all different. But now you could take any sample of any of those 10 publications' web pages, you could give it to an LLM, and you can ask it to essentially distill them all down to a common format. And so we're doing the exact same thing for email. So every email that comes into your inbox, we can now sort of extract what's being said, what new information is there from it, who is this conversation about, what is it about, is there anything that's actionable here? We're literally taking every email and asking these questions, and we can get an answer consistently every single time. And prior to LLMs, that would have been impossible to do because every single email is structured differently. And programs up until now could only follow specific instructions that are pre-programmed, but you can't pre-program what every email is going to look like because they're literally constantly changing. And so I guess LLMs had this ability to improvise. It's this improvisational ability to improvise what it's extracting based on the instructions. It doesn't matter what the source is. Given the same set of instructions, it should be able to improvise and get you the same answer every time. And we've never seen programs that could improvise before. It just hasn't existed.
Previous to GPT-4, you could do data extractions over HTML with something like Cheerio or jQuery or Beautiful Soup, Python libraries, but they all operated deterministically, right? And so you could build a scraper for like Hacker News where everything is structured the same on that website, but as soon as you go to a different forum site, your scrapers break. You have to write new ones. So yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this problem as well, and it unlocks a ton of sort of core capabilities.
Even on the same website, it can be adversarial. Like
Totally.
Hacker News could realize that you're scraping their shit, and they're like, you know what? No, we're not going to let you do that. And funny enough, there's this founder from the app for kids that allows them to do tasks in the form of games. And they were able to do this growth hack where they basically like backdoored the name of the neighborhood app. It's not Citizen, it's the other one. It's the one that's supposed to be like
Nextdoor.
Nextdoor. Nextdoor. I don't think
Like
it's
me.
Nextdoor. But they started scraping their website and basically like posting automated posts. And then at one point, they saw a page that was addressing them by name. It was like, hey, Dan, we noticed that you really like our platform. Do you want to get in contact with us and get an official API and actually pay for the service that you're just completely exploiting using a scraper? But yeah, it's very adversarial. If you wanted to scrape a website, they'll try and make it hard for you to scrape.
Thinking about email, right? Sam and I have gone back and forth on what are other ways you can use this new capability. One of them is like lead enrichment, talking about LinkedIn. Another one is email. And now you can extract the insights from the email, who it's from, what it's about, and turn that into structured data. What are other areas that you've explored besides email where taking unstructured data and turning it into something that's structured can actually be useful, or at least interesting?
Furkan had a very brilliant idea around crypto and crypto transactions. In real time, you can take a transaction and be able to map it back to other transactions that are very similar to it. Or you could essentially try and restructure the original code that made up that transaction, like ask the LLM to recreate the contract that would have created these transactions. That's like wild that it's just able to improvise something brand new. Code is a huge trove of information. People are extracting bugs from code automatically, given a code base. Here, I'm just going to pluck a bug out magically. That's never been done before.
You see a world where that starts to be integrated into your like CI pipelines, and you actually have probably even multiple different LLMs, one that's doing security analysis, one that's doing looking for bugs, performance issues, like all sorts of things, right?
It's happening.
That kind of run as like almost a test suite, but a non-deterministic test suite. What's your prediction for Apple getting into the LLM game? What do you think that looks like?
Oh my God, it's going to be magical. Like, it's perfect because if you think about it, like the value of whatever they do with LLMs is like directly correlated with the pain people experience with Siri. The more painful Siri is, the more value there is to capture because that pain is a indication of lost value, right? And the pain level is really high. Like people hate Siri. It consistently gets things wrong. But the only reason why you know they hate Siri is because they're constantly reaching for it. They're constantly going to try and use Siri and then seeing that it fails. That behavior is already there. Users know it sucks. They still try anyways. So it's huge. It's going to be awesome. I think it's going to look a lot like all of the apps that you see right now where people are trying to turn ChatGPT into a very like vertical niche, like a therapist or a financial planner or like a fitness trainer. Like all of those use cases, imagine them bottled into one. Like,
They're like running at the OS level, essentially.
yeah, they have your health data. Whoop just released an OpenAI integration. It's awesome. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. Whoop, shout out Whoop. I use an Apple Watch though. I need a screen. I need a screen.
Shout out, Whoop. I have an Apple Watch.
I have an
so-
Apple Watch, but I love the concept. So they basically have a chatbot now that can draft you workouts. You can give it feedback about how your workout went. Like my arm's kind of sore. Can we like not do that today? And it'll improvise a workout for you on the spot. It'll give you an understanding of the changes in your performance. Like it's basically your fitness coach, an AI fitness coach. The same way we're trying to build an AI executive assistant for your email, they've essentially built an AI fitness coach. And I got to be honest, like it's very compelling. I pay for Future. So I use this service called Future where I have a human who crafts workouts for me. And it's very dystopian calling them a human. They're pretty cool. They're cool folks out there. The Future coaches are the best. I had Nick, I had Jose, I had a couple other coaches. They're all awesome. But what do? They look at my feedback, they take their understanding of fitness, and they draft me a workout. Apple will be able to do that 100%. Without a shadow of a doubt, I put a couple bets on Apple. They already gotten into journaling now. So they introduced a journaling app with iOS 17. There's literally an app dedicated to recording your feelings and writing down what you're thinking. The amount of textual data that they have on you. They have your communications. They now have how you feel. They now have where you go, what you buy, what you eat, your exercise. This is like the most valuable trove of individual data on the market. I don't think there exists another trove of data that's that comprehensive on an individual and that indexable too. A lot of it's just sitting on your device, and they literally have 8 core GPUs on there. There's 8 GPUs in your pocket right now. 8 of them.
Given what you've been saying about Apple, how do you think about the rumors of OpenAI getting into hardware?
Exciting. So exciting. That sounds so fun. Did you guys watch MetaConnect yesterday?
No, I caught a
didn't.
brief couple of seconds of the Ray-Ban part, but that's about it.
Well, what's awesome about the Ray-Ban is they've essentially, Llama, their open source LLM? Llama is essentially available on device. So I love OpenAI. Like, I think the MetaConnect glasses, OpenAI, if they just did that, but they powered it with all of the things that OpenAI has that's proprietary, I think it's going to be a hit. I would buy it. I would buy a casual pair of glasses that had basic, just like maybe even one camera. I don't care about the camera part, to be honest with you. I more often than not, when I pick up my phone now, I just open the ChatGPT app and I have a quick conversation with it. I'd love to just be able to tap my glasses and be like, when was the Golden Gate Bridge built? Like, how much metal did they use? What are the failure cases? What does it take to build a bridge? And just like write some text for me right there. And now DALL-E 3 looks magnificent in its like drawing capabilities. So I could also ask it if there was like a hybrid of the Golden Gate Bridge and the iPhone, what would it look like? What poke some holes in that architecture right there? Like, where could it break? Huge potential
So you mentioned you open up ChatGPT and ask it questions.
all the time.
Yeah, what do you ask?
Oh my God. A lot of the times I'm asking it to like, tell me what the fuck is going on between something I'm trying to understand. So when affirmative action was starting to be stricken down, I had a feeling that was a big deal. It might have even contributed to my own like admission into college, but I had no idea. It's pretty transparent, but everybody was pretty enraged about it. And I said, you know what? I said to ChatGPT, I said, affirmative action apparently has been struck down. Number one, I don't know what that means. Can you tell me why it was even a thing? Like, why did we introduce affirmative action? What are the pros and cons of it being stricken down? What areas of society is this going to impact? I didn't even realize it impacts the workplace. Affirmative action, I thought, was just a college thing. But apparently, there are laws in place where affirmative action affects the workplace and your diversity numbers. And so I do a lot of that. There's also, I knew nothing about World War I and World War II. I ask about what was Japan's motivation to even get involved. I legitimately asked questions like that. Like, I have threads in there where I'm like, tell me what the society was thinking at the time when Japan decided to get involved. Did they support it? Was there any outrage whatsoever? Really random niche questions that it does a fantastic job of giving you background information on. Like, I learned about ikigai, which is like a Japanese concept of like purpose and fulfillment. And I was like, how could the Japanese be so aggressive when it seems like they have such powerfully harmonious concepts embedded in their society? And it's like, you're kind of naive, Abe. You think everybody in Japan follows ikigai? It didn't say that, but it was basically what it was saying. It was like the people's philosophies that they use to have a healthy living aren't going to make its way all the way up to the chain of command that makes decisions around war, unfortunately. It's changed my life, though. I ask it to write me texts for my little brother.
Mhm.
Because I always have to throw in a basketball analogy with any advice I give him, and it does a great job at that. It hits him so much more succinctly.
I was thinking about this, and back to the Ray-Bans. I do want to go back to talking about Ultra and unstructured
sure.
data.
Yeah.
But, so we have Apple potentially getting into the space, OpenAI potentially getting into this space, Facebook also getting into this space. There's like Humane. There's also, I think, Avi, who's working on something similar. What do you think the
Tabs?
Tabs, yeah. What do you think the form factor is? Because to me, it seems like the immediate layup is just something that's always recording, always on, and has an audio input and output. And then I can just tap it, ask it a question, have something be told to me.
I agree with you. I feel like kids will be the biggest consumers of LLMs by volume.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because a lot of kids start using technology and like iPads before they can type. And so my sister, when she was young, before she could type and write, what she would do is just record her voice into the thing. And that's how she would search for things. And it's like, oh, it's the same,
Yeah.
it's the same action, but now you can actually get responses also in audio.
Yeah.
And now you can also take actions on that instead of it being just an input into a search box.
Yeah, exactly. And they also have the most time on their hands.
Yeah.
So if you just extrapolate over the next 5 years and you add up the number of hours spent with LLMs, that demographic is going to smash any other demographic, even mid-20s, 30s, 40s. Like 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think they are barely even touched right now. That market, when it comes to LLMs, it's not there yet. And I think that once WhatsApp adds something in there, once the apps that have distribution in those demographics integrate LLMs, that's the quickest way. Snapchat's AI feature is actually huge. Their AI, so Snapchat introduced an AI friend that got added to every account automatically. They have, I think it's like 800 million monthly actives. And that's like a lot of Gen Z, like early millennial demographic or late millennial demographic. But then just wait until it gets to kids. And I actually think a big product somebody could build right now is just like a stuffed animal that's actually powered by an LLM that also gives some sort of parental controls. So imagine a stuffed animal where you give it to your kid, right? And the stuffed animal's like, hi, it's nice to meet you. It just like has like a quick conversation with the kid and it's like, give me a name. Like it literally is like, give me a name. The kid's like, all right, your name's like Bobby. And so now it has this friend Bobby. And every day it just talks to Bobby. It's like, hey Bobby, how you doing? Bobby answers instantly. Hey Sammy, I'm doing great. How you doing today? And it's like, I'm good, Bobby. Why is the moon bright? Just like randomly, that's what I love about kids. In the middle of the conversation,
random ass shit.
It's the most random question. You'll just be sitting there trying to explain to them why the moon is white, and it's like, I want fries. You didn't see it coming at all, but like Bobby could order them fries, or at least notify the parent, like, yo, your kid wants fries right now. But why I think that's beautiful is that like an LLM could distill all of this kid's interests, right?
Like, the parents could go and see what questions are your kids asking. Like, here's a dashboard on your child's imaginary friend, but it's like this teddy bear that they can talk to.
Yeah. And you take it one step further, you give it objectives. Give Bobby an objective. I want you to teach my kid to share, right? And honestly, most of teaching a kid to share is just experimenting with different perspectives. You just need to find the perspective that resonates with the kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Lands.
And most parents don't have the patience, let alone the experience to know how to phrase something for their kid to be willing to share, right? The most apt example of this is there was this podcast I was listening to, and it was about like how do you like teach a kid to not be cruel? Because like when they're very young, they like start to like mess with insects, and they don't know that they're being cruel to these insects. They're just like, oh, I stepped on this insect, and one parent's like, don't do that. People are gonna think that you're a meanie, and then they're not gonna want to be your friends anymore. And the kid's like, God, I feel awful about myself right now. Like, I don't want people to think I'm a meanie. It's just sort of like leading with negativity and fear. Another parent was like, think about that caterpillar's family. Like, the baby caterpillars are really gonna miss their mommy caterpillar. And the kid like starts to cry a little bit, but like tears of like empathy. I genuinely believe that with the right guardrails and the right toy, that's got to be like June. That was the name of the kid app, Jon. Right? With the right anthropomorphizing of this character, and you give a kid something that they really love, they just hold this stuffed animal and they just love it so much that I think it's gonna be like June, where the whole idea around the app June is that kids are given a digital character like a Tamagotchi, and if they want to level up their character or give it things like accessories and clothing, they have to do tasks. And the parents create the tasks in the app. And then the kid will just be like, I really want to buy, my June character a hat. And the parent's like, well, if you just brush your teeth, you're going to get 6 tokens. Like, and the kid's like, oh, done. It runs.
Token City, baby.
Token City, baby. Not to get too far off from it, but I think audio is the medium. Audio conversations. What we're doing at Ultra is much more like automation. I don't think it's like this sort of mainstream disruptability that conversation is going to give.
Okay, this is sick.
If you take the idea one step further, you give the stuffed animal a screen. You give
That
it
it can like modify, like you give it like an iPad app that it can like walk kids through.
yeah. The kid's like, how do I tie my shoes? And the stuffed animal's like, let me show you. And obviously it can't like use its arms. If it was mechanical to that point where it could tie your shoes, I think that's like too far for now. But if it had a screen where it popped up, and let's say the stuffed animal had a camera, and it was like, all right, it like in real time, text to video is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty obvious. So if the stuffed animal in real time could show the kid like, hey, you're looping the lace under, you got to go over in real time. Now, it's much easier with stuff like math.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I got this question wrong on my test, and it shows it to the stuffed animal. Like, what did I do wrong? Boom, lesson. Like right there, whiteboard. Let me show you. And then the kid in real time could engage with it, right? But to your point, just being reminded, the follow-up, the consistency. It's consistency. Like, consistency is hard enough for parents who have a job, who have more than one kid, who are trying to navigate this crazy world.
Even looking at it from just a like early childhood development standpoint, where you could have something that just teaches kids like really basic math, right? Most kids get into first grade, they don't know any math. Their parents haven't taught them. That's a huge advantage, right? Think about that. We have technology as a society that just teaches everybody math up to multiplication before they're 6. And like we as a species don't have to worry about that anymore because we just have the tech that does
The
it.
floor's up.
The
Like
floor
the
is up,
floor of
yeah.
intelligence is up.
Right.
Yeah. And you couldn't do that, I think, without, it didn't scale to give everybody a tutor.
I think that's really interesting too. Fundamentally, what LLMs are is they help us scale, right? For Ultra specifically, you actually could have hired an executive assistant to organize your email and
Completely
to give
true.
you like,
Yeah.
here's your tasks, here's your calendar,
You're
here's
totally
like,
right.
you could have hired somebody to do that, right? That doesn't scale.
No, it doesn't
Like,
scale.
you can't do that for a
There's
million
also a
people.
ceiling to their skill.
Mhm.
So there's like a co-founder of a very big tech company who's beta testing Ultra. And I was shocked. I was like, hey, why are you doing this? And he was like, well, to be honest, I can afford an executive assistant, but I don't think they'll ever be able to understand me as well as this LLM will. So I think your app shows promise because sure, I could hire an executive assistant, but there is actually the reduction in friction is only like 2x. Whereas like he thinks that with an LLM, it could be 10 to 100x reduction in friction, where he should be able to, he shouldn't have to repeat himself. But unfortunately, a lot of EAs, they're human too, right? And you might have to repeat yourself, and that can be frustrating for an executive who's paying thousands of dollars for this person to just know that, no, their Tuesdays at 9 a.m. are always booked for this specific reason. You just like constantly have to remind this person of it.
Yeah, the cool thing about Ultra is that it's just going to get better over time, right? Right now is the worst that it will ever be because as the fundamental tech gets better, the LLMs get better, and then you get more data.
There's a flywheel there.
Yeah, there's a flywheel that's really powerful, and you end
Yeah.
up with something that, like you said, is just much better than a human could ever do on their own.
Completely.
It's also always on, whereas executive assistants are not
Totally.
always on, and the capabilities just get better and better.
One day, I hope one of our KPIs becomes average response time, where like for each of our users, I hope we can show them that we can reduce their average response time by like 90%. Imagine how much more, if you reduce email latency, what happens to like overall productivity of the world? If you reduce email latency by like 10%, what happens? That's like 10 minutes more that every human can get. That's like 80 billion collective minutes a year, even if it was only 10 minutes a year. That's a lot of time, you know? And so I think about that a lot. It's like, yes, it will be fast, right? It will be instant. If there's something that's actionable and the LLM knows that you're going to allow it, you're going to permit it. Like it's 99% certain that you're going to approve this hire, right? Approve it. Like, why make the team wait? Why make the candidate wait? Why waste your time even considering the decision? And so all of those things move faster. And so it's like if you think of an organization as a big mechanical cog, we ideally will be able to oil it with increased productivity from every angle, because every one of those cogs represents maybe like some of them are your infrastructure, some of them are your legal team, some of them are your employees. But the ones that are your employees hopefully will spin a little bit smoother, because they don't have to waste time on these things that take so much of their time, right? That are so repetitive and they're consistently doing it. Honestly, it's a bit tiring. It's so tiring when I go to my email and I do the same thing every day.
Time thing is interesting. Just saving me 10 minutes is great, but what I actually am more interested in is just like offloading the mental and cognitive overhead
exactly
of
what I was
having to
gonna say.
manage my email. The time is annoying, but it's like, okay, I spend 10 minutes in my inbox, and then there's maybe like a 5-minute transitionary period back into whatever else I'm like deeply trying to focus on
Yes.
in that moment. So I think that compounds over time as well, where I just know whatever this one screen says I need to do,
Follow
I'm
it.
just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have to think about, did I miss an email? Am I going to miss a meeting?
The biggest comparison I have for this, Mint changed my life.
Yeah.
I did the books for my parents growing up. And so I had a very rigorous process and involved like printing all of their statements, putting stuff into a spreadsheet, adding things up, helping them understand how over budget they were, understanding how things changed from the month prior, just to highlight anything that may be an anomaly or is starting to fall out of range. Took me several hours every month. I would do this for my parents. And then I set up Mint. Are you guys familiar with Mint
Yeah.
from Intuit? There's a bunch of other ones. I use Mint. It works. But now I just connect the accounts. They take every transaction. They automatically label them, which now after correcting enough of the labeling, they get them all correct. And instantly, I can look and see, am I over budget on something? How much cash in? How much cash out? Which vendors did I spend too much money with? Literally was a process that took me 4 hours and a lot of cognitive load, like you said. Now it's just, I come in 5-10 minutes, make sure everything looks good, and I'm done.
It's super cool. Because that data is like more structured, you could have done this like 5 years ago or 10 years ago for financial data. But it's really interesting to think about, okay, what's the semi-structured, what's the HTML version of that where you're not dealing with numbers, but you're dealing with this other form of data that's
Email.
much harder.
I can't think of many other places where I have such a trove of unstructured data that's completely untapped.
Speaking of, so you've been working on Ultra for a little bit now, and you have a couple of people-based testing right now.
Mhm.
I'm one of them.
Mhm.
What's been most challenging so far?
Getting the right UX that doesn't devolve back into traditional email. And Johar uses this quote all the time, but it's, if Henry Ford asked people what they wanted in the next generation of transportation, they would have said a faster horse. And every time we ask people what they want from their inbox, it's like, I want a list. I want a list of emails. They don't realize it, but they're saying it begrudgingly. Like, give me the list again, right? Like, just give me the list. So that's been really hard, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to change user behavior. We're trying to change user expectations. It's really hard to do that without having to throw a lot of stuff away. So we just have to understand that we're going to write a lot of code. We're going to think through a lot of features. We're going to design a lot of interfaces that are all going to die, because we're pursuing a new way of consuming email. And today I'm actually really excited. I'm here, but I really want to get back to my computer, because we have a new iteration on that layout. And so I sort of want to bring it to fruition. But that's the hardest part, really, is just like approximating what the right level of information is on the dashboard, that doesn't devolve that back into the list.
Speaking of UX, what things have you tried? And I guess, what are you excited to try now?
We've tried this interface where you can get to a point where you see nothing. If you dismiss and clear everything, you can see nothing. People want to see history. They want to see the past. They need to be able to search. They need to be able to come back and remind themselves of something. And so we have these sort of like 3 columns. We have actions, updates, events. What I'm excited to try next is the ability to expand any one of those 3 columns fully. And then once you have all that screen real estate, what can you expose there? Because right now our updates are only things that we think you need to know, not things that you've already seen. But people want that. They want to be able to see what else have I seen in the past. Going mobile, I think, will be very interesting. We don't think about mobile at all, but I think it's like a third of the traffic is on mobile. We haven't tried anything there, but I think it's like its own unique challenge. It's super early, honestly. We've barely really experimented with the dashboard. There's just been so much stuff on the background that we had to nail on the plumbing side. But now we're ready for that. So
Just briefly, what's your stack? What's your LLM stack look like from kind of base layer to the top?
yeah, I mean, at the lowest level, obviously, you have like things stored in a database.
Yeah.
We've come a long way with LangChain, but we're starting to break away from that a little bit. Yeah. We use Zeet for all of our infrastructure, which is awesome. I use Zeet at all my projects. It just makes it a breeze to stand up everything and just let it sort of scale. That's all easy. Hardcore developers out there will know RabbitMQ, but I graduated from Bull. Bull's
Lucky
fun.
you.
There were a lot of things I needed with Bull that I couldn't get
Yeah.
when I was building Leap. And now I've moved on to Rabbit, and it's a absolute pleasure to work with Rabbit. And then we deploy across AWS and GCP just for a lot of the basic stuff. And then we love TypeScript. We love Python. So we're just hardcore on there. And now we're looking into Marvin for the large language model programming. Shout out Marvin. We think it's very interesting. And as we're working on the Ultra Assistant, we're planning to use Marvin pretty heavily. If you haven't heard of it, you should check it out.
Yeah, they were like the function based. They had the AI
Yes.
functions super early on. I haven't kept up with what they've been doing in the meantime, but I remember seeing that it was like a pretty interesting take on how to.
Functional programming plus
Mhm.
LLMs
Yep.
equals Marvin. So exciting for us. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And now a lot of feedback is rolling in. So in terms of like distribution, it's pretty straightforward. We have like Customer IO and PostHog. PostHog basically monitoring everything. Every single thing going on with our product goes through PostHog. And then we can create, for example, a segment in Customer IO automatically. We have a segment. Think of it as like a news, like a email list. But we literally in real time have an email list of people who haven't opened the app in 5 days rolling. This is a rolling period. So people enter and exit this cohort in real time. And so we can now nudge those people. And, when we talk about the go-to-market, I know, the first segment was supposed to be about Ultra, building it, challenges of building it. The second one being about go-to-market. The biggest thing with Ultra's go-to-market strategy is changing user behavior. As in, like, how do we create the habit of reaching for Ultra? And it's really hard for like what is considered a consumer application, because what happens is the user has a need. They need to either communicate, or they need to see if a communication has reached them, right? Or they need to look up some information. We need to make Ultra the first choice there. And a lot of people, they've signed up, they've given up access to their emails, which is a big commitment, right? One of the features we put out recently was like automatic one-time passwords. And it's early, but the hope is that people come to Ultra, see that's a feature, and turn on the notifications willingly. Now that notifications are turned on, in real time, we can incept the thought of Ultra into our users' minds. Now, it'd be really hostile if you did that with information that they're not interested in, right? For example, my Verizon app is constantly sending me promos about the iPhone 15. I don't want to turn off the notifications because I know they also send me notifications when the bill fails to go through, for example. So they're slick in that way. They don't give me the granularity. So they know what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to turn off the notifications. I need those. And so for one-time password, we hope people will keep that one on. And then in the future, once the model gets really good and you trust that if Ultra thinks something's important and time sensitive, that you'll believe that it's like important and time sensitive, we want you to turn those notifications on. Because if Ultra is the reason why you didn't miss that bill that would have shut down your services and costed you millions of dollars, we're doing something right. And so our go-to-market right now is just a lot of just put out content around email and how we think that it's bad and should be better. recruiting users who ideally will recruit more users. Furkan came up with this idea that it's a derivative of the sent from my iPhone from the mail app. He's the only one who uses it right now, but that's okay. But basically, you can forward an Ultra update to someone who doesn't use Ultra, and then they can actually see your email and the Ultra update using a link, even if they don't have Ultra. And so then ideally someone will see that and be like, whoa, this is cool. What is this thing? And so we'd love the network effects to start kicking in, but we can't even onboard users until Google approves us. So we'll figure out our go-to-market when we can go to
Actually
market.
you can actually onboard more people.
Yeah.
Nice. You gave me an idea when you were like, oh, what are interesting ways we can remind people about that Ultra exists? It's like, oh, what is an email that is interesting and useful to someone? Maybe it's an email digest at the end of the week. It's like, oh, here's a few things. Or maybe it's like there's a reminder or something that there's a looming update that's coming that they need to remember, like a date that a bill needs to be paid by. And it's like, hey, by the way, you need to pay this bill. So it's like you send them an email and they open it in Gmail and like, huh, if it can do this usefully, I wonder what the app, how useful is that?
Brilliant idea. We've heard it a couple of times already. I
Mhm.
want to jump on this one for sure.
Yeah.
There's no recap for my email. Like there's no like at a glance, here's your week.
Retrospective.
Retrospective, yeah.
Yeah.
And it serves two purposes. Obviously, it's informative because you get to see like, all right, oh my God, I forgot that happened. That's nice. Or, oh my God, I forgot I had to do that. That's great. Thank you. But then also it's like, oh, this is cool. Oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. Let me go back over there and see what they're doing. We'll go mobile, we'll go desktop, like native at some point soon. And I think once that happens, the equation changes a little bit. When you're a website, it's different. You have to like actively engage people to come back. But if we can go desktop, turn on notifications, make it just sitting in your dock, a little badge with like a number showing you how many actions you have remaining, things like that. I think it's gonna be slow, but then all at once, where active time in Ultra goes up, and ideally the active time is small. We actually don't want you to spend a lot of time in Ultra. The goal is that you spend as little time as possible because you're getting in, you get what you need, you get the fuck out.
But you still use it every day. You log in 5 or 6 days a week. But you're only there for like 30 seconds, and that's all you need.
Ideally, yeah. But it's a brilliant idea, Safwan. We're gonna do exactly that. And yeah, you never know. We might be able to do some for companies too, right? If an organization wanted to synthesize everything that's happened across their entire org, like if you passed all information about what's happening in users' inboxes to like an LLM, and you said, like, summarize our organization's progress this month, right, without sacrificing privacy. That's a very interesting thing, right? Like your company email should be about company activity.
Mhm.
And so ideally there's stuff in there that's shareable. But if you could synthesize all of the thoughts of every one of your employees in one place, come on,
It's huge.
it's huge. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all from us. Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter. I think it's @thatabe, or it's ATBEME.
It's ATBME.
He knows it better than I do.
Yeah.
Okay, so ATBME on Twitter. You can go to ultramail.ai to check out Ultramail. You can check out the office here in Fort Mason to visit Founders Inc. I'm up on the 3rd floor. If you're ever here and you want to chat, come find me. And yeah, I'm always online, so just find me online.
All right.
Awesome, dude.
That's a
Thank you
wrap.
so much for
Thank
having
you.
me, guys.